What's up, everybody? Welcome back. This is another episode of Recovery Talk. And as always, the main purpose I started doing this is to bring more awareness to people suffering from addiction and also to show them that recovery is possible. So today is going to be a good show. It's going to be a good one. It's going to be a good life. So every guest I've ever had on, the majority have all gotten sober through a 12-step program. Now, my guest today, Jennifer, that is not her story. I'm not going to talk about it too much. I'm going to let her tell her story. But I got sober in a 12-step program. For the first couple of years, I had this way of thinking that people, it'll only work if you go into a 12-step program. My mind was still somewhat closed to the idea of other people recovering a different way. What helped me to kind of pry my mind open to this idea is when I became a counselor and I went to school and I started to learn more. Because one thing that my 12-step program taught me is how to keep an open mind. So it's not going to be a typical, 12-story or 12-step story from Jennifer today, but I'm really excited for her to share her story so you guys can see that recovery is possible. I'm an advocate for recovery. To me personally, I do not care how somebody got sober. If you once struggled with an addiction and you no longer do, I want to hear about it. It inspires hope. And that's what people need out there that's still sick and suffering, especially in the middle of this pandemic. Like people okay, my girl Haley's on there. I see her. She's one of them. So she got sober in the middle of this pandemic. My hat is off to people like that because it's honestly like triple the work. The same resources I was given when I got sober is not available to people that was trying to get sober during this pandemic and also stayed sober through the pandemic. It's still going on right now. A lot of things are closed down. I'm in California and they're slowly opening things back up now. Outdoor dining, finally, thank God, is back open, because I'm from Hawaii. I'm Hawaiian and I love to eat. Hawaiian people love to eat. So it's cool that they're starting to open these things back up. But let's see. Sorry, just waving back to everybody. Hey, guys. Oh, there's a ton of you guys. Jennifer. Okay, so just hang on, guys. Hey, Alex. What's up, guys? Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I got people regularly that tune in and support this. I'm not nothing special. People, they talk me up all the time, and honestly, I'm not. There's nothing really special about me. God did all the work. Not all the work. He did the things that I couldn't do, but I was in charge of doing the things that I can do. You see, God, He's not going to do that for me. He's not going to do the work that He asked me to do for me. So I'm excited about today's show. We are going to be live here. Well, I am live. We're going to be going live with Jennifer here in a moment. Let me see. Okay. Hey, Jennifer, how's it going?
It's going good. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. You know what? I'm so sorry. I just realized I'm going live on my Pro Recovery Power one, and I always go live on my personal Instagram. But it's all good because I was trying to make the transition to doing these live shows. Move it over to the Pro Recovery Power page I got. But thank you so much, man. Hey, I kind of I talked a little bit about you. I don't want to tell you the whole story, but I'm really excited. Because typically when you hear somebody that has recovered from drugs and alcohol, it was all 12 steps. So I did a 12-step program or some sort of 12-step base, whether it was cellular recovery or, other programs out there like that. But thank you so much for being here. How is everything going?
Everything's going good. I feel like I'm going to puke, but I don't think I will.
Yeah. Oh, right.
In our team, we the rule is basically follow the puke. So here I am.
Oh, cool. I know we spoke a little bit earlier. I got to know you a little bit earlier. And for you guys don't know, I created a post on my Pro Recovery Power page, and about, if you have a story to tell. And I met Jennifer through somebody else that tagged her in that post, and it was just really the other day, and I got her on, with me live today. So,
Thank you.
that's exciting. Like I was saying, I don't care, how somebody got sober, but like if you want struggle and you don't, like, let's talk about it. Let's hear it. People got to hear these stuff, So, but before we get started, Jennifer, I wanted to ask you a few questions. So the first one is, how long have you been sober now?
So my clean date is February 20th, so I'm coming up on 5 years.
All right, congratulations.
1,806 days today. Yeah.
All right, all right.
Yeah.
So the next question is, where are you from?
Originally born and raised in Orange County, but now I live in Northern California in the East Bay area near San Francisco.
Okay. Man, it must be kind of cold up there right now too, huh?
It is. It is.
Yeah, it's finally getting cold down here, in the IE. Finally. It was like still summer for weeks into winter. That's how it felt. Okay, and then the last question I'm going to ask you before I give you the floor to tell us your story is, what was your choice in drink and or drug?
So actually alcohol was never anything that I think I dabbled in that as a teenager, but it was never anything I did when I was using, and I couldn't do it. So alcohol is not one of my drugs of choice. But my main drug of choice was meth, speed, and pretty much anything else I could get my hands on. I've done just about everything. And at one point it became, if I could put it into a needle, that's what my drug of choice was for the moment.
Right. Okay, awesome. Now that we got a little bit to know you a little bit, tell everybody your story now. I'm gonna give you the floor to tell your story. I'm excited to hear the whole thing now.
Okay, awesome. Well, I'll just start at the beginning, because the beginning for me is really a big part of my story. So I'm a oldest of three, and my mom, when I was 5, she left my dad and kind of went out to not be a mom anymore. And ironically, that was kind of how my drug use story started too many years down the line. But she was out partying and doing all of that. And when we finally went back to live with her, she had boyfriends in and out, and one boyfriend in particular introduced her to cocaine. And I was probably 7 or 8 at the time. And ironically, it's the same time as the first DARE classes were out.
Oh, wow.
And so I had no concept of what was going on in my house. And, for everything that she did do wrong, the one thing my mom did right was she didn't bring that lifestyle around us kids. So I have a brother and sister younger than me, and she didn't bring that lifestyle around us. She kept it away. But I do remember hearing conversations on the phone, and I couldn't understand why she would be talking about Peru. Later on, I understood why. And I couldn't understand why, for a while, why our garage door was always locked from the inside. But funny enough, on the first day of our DARE class, we have this video with this big fat officer, big fat cop. And they do this, drug raid, and he, walks into this house, and there's this huge scale and a big old mound of white powder. And he walks up and he licks his pinky and he goes, "Oh, that's cocaine." And then the officer that's doing this, the DARE program, tells us what cocaine does and how it makes you feel. And then I remember that they ended the class with, if anybody is on drugs or has a problem, tell a teacher, find a police officer, tell the school nurse, tell the principal, and they'll get them help. It was funny though, because when I heard that instantly translated it to me. And not that, again, I didn't know anything about what was going on in my house at the time. I just knew things didn't add up.
Yeah.
But that told me that that meant like people would be split up, That same day when I get home was the only day that garage door, the padlock was off. So I was like, okay, great, I'll get my bike. I'm the first one home. I was a latchkey kid. And went in, and there was that same looking gold thing, I later learned was the triple beam. And it didn't have a mound of powder on it, but it had a very light film. So I did exactly what that officer did in the video, and my hair went numb. And that wasn't the start of my drug use, but that was the start of my keeping secrets.
Mm-hmm.
And I walked out of the garage and I picked up the padlock that was laying on the counter and I locked the garage and I didn't tell a soul. I didn't tell my mom. I knew what was going on, and I knew if I did that our family would be split up. And so, you know, fast forward years, you know, later I was a rebellious teenager. My mom, you know, she eventually got clean and, you know, but we had been allowed to run our own lives up until I was about 15. You know, she found religion and really grasped it and wanted us to do the same. And I rebelled. And that rebellion took me into teenage pregnancy. I was pregnant, you know, before my 16th birthday, had my first son when I was 16, and was then thrust into being a mother. And, you know, being a younger teenager, yeah, I did some pot, you know, we did acid, but, you know, it was never really a thing. And then I was a mom. And then 2 years later, I had my second son. And then 2 years after that, I was married and had my daughter. And just, you know, went from basically being a child into being a mom. Mm-hmm. And right when my daughter was probably about a year and a half, I had moved up here to Northern California to live with my mom. And we started having some severe differences, my mom and I. And at the same time, I was also kind of getting tired of being called mom. Mm-hmm. And it just worked out that my two older sons' dads were like, hey, you know, hey, I want to spend time with them. I want to have more time. And so my two older boys went to live with their dads. And my daughter, I called my ex-husband and said, okay, you need to take her. I need a break. I need some time. Mm-hmm. And I got that break. And about 3 weeks into that break, I found a job and found a boyfriend. And it turned out that boyfriend, well, he did cocaine. So I went from like having like little, you know, bits, you know, little, you know, get high on weed here, have a wine cooler here. And mind you, I wasn't even 21 yet. Yeah. And I just went, you know, from this, all of a sudden, you know, we're at a party and we're drinking, and he looks at me, he says, hey, there's some cocaine in the back room. And I was like, I've never tried that. And he was like, come on. So, you know, it really started as partying. You know, I started in my 20s, and I didn't start to escape. There wasn't anything I was escaping. Mm-hmm. But, you know, of course, eventually it does become that. But it was ironic because I knew that cocaine was a thing that really tore our family apart. The boyfriend that my mom had been seeing, who introduced her to cocaine and got her into dealing, was the same man who molested me and my sister. Mm. And the molestation is a big part of my sister's story. It's really not a big part of my story because it didn't affect me in the same way as it did her. But he tore our family apart. You know, caused a lot of strife, a lot of differences, caused some big competition between me and my mom that I carried in and punished her for. And so it was like, I fell in love with it, and I couldn't really reconcile that. I fell in love with it and wanted to do it all the time. I was on it all the time. I was taking little vials to work and, you know, outselling everybody. I was selling cell phones at the time and outselling everybody. But really just like involved in that. And I didn't have my kids. And I justified what I was doing by saying, well, I didn't do this when I was younger. Right? This is my right. This is my rite of passage, which is bull crap, right? We all know that's bull crap now. But I claimed that as my rite of passage. And, you know, I was missing my kids. And so quickly my drug use became my way to not miss my kids. Mm-hmm. And when I would have them, you know, I would do things like go to the movies and sit at the end of the aisle so they could run around inside of where the chairs were, and I could sleep because, you know, I was trying really hard not to get high when I was with them. Well, that meant I was crashing when I was with them. Mm-hmm. And I just slowly got to be farther and farther and farther away from my kids, just emotionally. And then my mom calls me and she says, you know, we don't like that your daughter's living with your ex-husband. We're going to go get her. And so she took her. And then 3 weeks later, she brings her and drops her in my lap. She's like, I can't do this. And she drops her in my lap. My daughter was 2.5, you know, she was, and she's a handful. Yeah. And, but I wasn't ready to be mom again. Mm-hmm. So I didn't change anything. And instead, I now had my daughter tagging along with me. I now had her going into parties and, you know, just going late enough so that she would go to sleep in some person's bed. Mm-hmm. So that I could stay up all night and get high, have sex, do whatever. Yep. You know, and pray that she didn't wake up in the middle of it and see what I was doing. And so that went on, you know, for about 6 or 7 months. And it was about Christmas time of 2000. And I'm living with my dad in San Diego at the time with my daughter. And I get a call from, the person that I run with, right? And I go back to Orange County all the time, and we go, do all of our running. And then I come home and I've got my money and I'm good to go. Well, I do what I normally do. I ask my brother to watch her. I'll be gone for a couple hours, middle of the night, I'll come back. And at about 5 o'clock in the morning, when it's time for me to start driving from Orange County back down to San Diego, I sat down on the bed and I started to hit the pipe, but I just couldn't hear mommy again. And I felt really guilty about it at the time too. So I just hit the pipe some more to get rid of the guilt, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't go back. And this is like the beginning of cell phones, mind you.
Yeah.
Right? I had a little Nokia phone. I just turned that off. There was no way to find your family, no nothing. So I let my family believe that I had been kidnapped. And that was actually what I ended up telling them when I did go back a week later. Because I was like, okay, well, I at least need to be able to get some of my stuff. So I used, I pretended to feel, like, oh, okay, I'm back and I was kidnapped and they used my car and needed to, like, it was like such an outlandish story too, right? Some people kidnapped me and they needed to use my car because the plates were clean and, to run drugs. And, like, that was my story. And I stuck to it. And so I was there again another week. And I convinced my brother, watch her just one last time. I have to go. I've got some stuff with my friends. I just have to go drop it back and I'll be right back. And I stayed gone for over a year. And, it was like, get high to forget that I'm a bad mom. Right. And now I'm a bad mom because I'm getting high to forget. And the cycle just continued. And, got in with some really, really, really bad crowd. I was never raised to be racist, but in Huntington Beach, that's what's there. And in order to run with them safely, I had to be that. So I did some things. I said some things. I was a part of things that, to this day make me sick, that I wouldn't have done had I been sober.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I got pregnant. Thankfully, I got pregnant because what happened is, my pregnancy is, I can't stand any smell. So I got sick right away. I found out I was pregnant and took me about 3 months to work up the nerve to call my dad and be like, I need to come home and I'm really sorry. And that was my first foray into any sort of recovery. I promised I would get into a program, that I had already been clean for 3 months. I would come home and they could test me and, they would see that. And so I did that. I found a program. Ironically, it was run by my dad's girlfriend's best friend. So it was like the connection was already there. It was just down the street. It was really easy to just like get right into that. And I felt, like, okay, this is good. I'm making progress. But I was doing it just because I wanted my kids back. And I was, I've always been one, like, I've not been ever part of the popular crowd. So I'm always short, right? I'm always the one that, either like, oh, you're so cute because I'm shorter than everybody else. Or, I was flat chested. So I got made fun of. Like, there was like all of these things. I wasn't, my parents weren't rich. So I didn't have all the things, but I went to schools that were in a really nice area. Like all these things that didn't match up that caused me to have this need to belong. And so, okay, I find the recovery community and I went to all the meetings and I did all the things, but it was more about the community and belonging in the community than it really was about my sobriety. And so when my best friend and I, we met a week after my son was born and we were thick as thieves. She had just given up her 4 children because it was better than, that way she could not stay in prison. If she gave them up for adoption, they would let her out and send her to California. So she did that. And I met her the day she came back when my son was a week old. And we were just together forever. And we used to play this game, this what if game that really wasn't what if. So it was our way of saying we wanted to do something without just coming right out and saying it. And so we were on our way to New Mexico and she says, what if we get to Nanny's? And we're just like, totally gouged out of our heads. And I knew she meant heroin. That was her drug of choice. And I had never put a needle in my arm before ever. And she was like, you know, what if? And I'm like, yeah, what if? And then what if became, this might be possible. And I don't know what force was in play at that time, but we were taking one of those shuttles from the airport from Albuquerque to Santa Fe. And we would play another game. We would pretend like, you know, just for other people, for strangers, just to, you know, we would have our own, you know, like phantasmical life. And this stranger really took to our fake story. And as we were getting off of the bus in Santa Fe, she got off and she like gives me a hug. And then in my hand, she puts $90. Now, so we're just having this conversation about, you know, what if we get high? And it was like, well, okay, so I guess we're going to get high. And that was the first time I tried heroin. And, you know, I kind of fell in love with that for a little bit. But, you know, I don't like puking. I don't like scratching. I don't like falling asleep. And so, you know, we came home and I was already starting to develop the habit because we were there for 3 weeks and we were doing it every day. And her nanny was already like, what is wrong with you guys? And, you know, she went from like loving me to pieces to like just wanting us to leave her house.
Yeah.
So we came back home and I immediately, I went to a meeting, but I went to a meeting because I knew somebody that was going to the meetings was actually a dealer. He was going up for court, but, and I hit him up. And that started, you know, me with using meth again. And I was like that, then I was truly in love. And I did that for about a year. My mom found out. And, you know, I have children. And so she was able to use my children against me. I had my 2 youngest. And she said, if you don't come home with me and get clean, meaning come back up to Northern California and get clean, I'm taking your children from you. And I was like, okay, then I'm coming with you because you're not taking my kids. And so I came with her. But again, I wasn't coming with her to be clean. I was coming with her because I wasn't letting her take my kids. And at the same time, she put me into a personal development course. And I found a home in there. I found positive change. And I found people who had been who were in recovery and who were doing it and were living positively. And I was on fire. But I had never dug into wanting to be clean for myself. I just changed environments.
Right.
And because I was already needing that and wanting to belong, I had somewhere where I belonged that I didn't need to use in order to belong. And so I did that for 3 years and it was great. You know, I was on fire. I was making a lot of money and feeling great until I didn't have that job anymore. And, you know, I was sitting on, you know, about $15,000 in savings from that job. And I was, you know, my brother actually, I was going to sell my car. And I was like, ask my brother, well, I need to sell my car. And he goes, we'll go on Craigslist. Sell your car on Craigslist. I'm like, okay, I'd never been on Craigslist before. I didn't know what Craigslist was. Yes. So I post my car and then I'm like, what is Craigslist anyways? I'm looking at all of the things and then I see casual encounters, right? And I'm like, well, that really seemed pretty innocuous, right? My mind still isn't going, I think I want to get high, right? But I see casual encounters. I'm like, okay, so I start searching around and pretty quickly, I was like, okay, people are using this to get high and have sex. Well, maybe I can do that. I can do that for a weekend. I've got 3 years. I can do that for a weekend. And that weekend turned into 8 years.
Yeah. Wow.
8 years. I had my 2 youngest with me for like the first 7 months. You know, the first guy that I hooked up with on there, we were together for a few years. We were a thing. And ironically, he's the person that my daughter calls dad. You know, we're very close. We're still very close to this day, even though he's not clean. But we, you know, my daughter went and my son went to go live with my cousin, and you know, I didn't know, but my aunt and my 2 cousins schemed to get my children away from me. And you know, I was like thinking, okay, this summer I'm going to get clean. It's not even been a year. I'm going to get clean this summer. My kids are going to be in school. I'm living with, you know, who I'm living with. We were talking about getting clean. We were doing that whole thing. Like, baby, we're going to do this. We're going to get the kids back. And then I call my cousin to start making flight arrangements for them to come back. And she hangs up on me.
Oh, wow.
And then I called her back and she blocked me. And I no longer had a reason to get clean. I no longer had a reason to get clean. I tried for 2 years. I would find them. She moved 3 times, and I would find them, and then she would move again. I would send the police there to do a well child check. And she told them that I was harassing her, and if I did it again, she would file harassment charges. And here I am. I am an addict. I don't have a leg to stand on.
Yeah.
Against my cousin. Even though she didn't have legal custody of them, I didn't have a leg to stand on. And I knew if I took her to court and I made a big deal, she could then get legal custody of them.
Right.
And I could lose it. And so I went back and forth with this for 2 years, and I'm still, just getting high, getting deeper and deeper and deeper into, crime so that I could support my habit.
Mm-hmm.
And my daughter, the whole time I was at least thinking, okay, well, at least they're with family and at least they're being loved, was what I was thinking. And I had no idea that the whole time my daughter was being beat.
Mm-hmm.
And my young son was being made to watch. And they were telling him that your sister's just like your mom. Mm-hmm. And telling my children that your mom never loved you at all. She's always loved drugs more, and she sent you to live with us, and she doesn't want you. My children didn't know that I was fighting. I would spoof phone numbers. I would spoof my aunt's and my mom's number so that she would at least pick up the phone. Yeah. And as soon as she heard my voice, she would hang up. So my daughter finally was, she was always fighting, saying, that's not true. My mom loves us. That's not true. And because she was singled out, she ended up getting left home, and she found me on Facebook and reached out to me, and I found out what was going on. My mom also found out. She didn't know this was going on like that, and she brought them home. Well, my daughter was about to be 13, and 13-year-old female teenager with attitude. My mom wasn't having it. So she brought her home, and then very quickly again, dropped her on my doorstep. And I wasn't ready to get clean. I still wasn't ready to get clean. So once again, now here I have a 13-year-old, and I'm dragging a 13-year-old girl, no longer a child, no longer a toddler, but very high risk, dragging her into all these scenarios. Mm-hmm. And that went on for about 2 years. Finally, my mom took, I begged her, please take her. We're homeless. We were homeless at the time. Please, I need you just to take her. And then she dropped her off at my ex-husband's. And that's a whole another thing that, my daughter had to go through again because of my choices. But I stayed not in contact, and I would get in contact with my son, and he would be just so happy. Mm-hmm. He wasn't sad. He wasn't mad. He was just happy. Mm-hmm. And the funny thing is that kept me high, because I didn't want to go there and see that he was so happy to see me, because I'd been gone for so long, that I had caused that. I had caused him to miss me that much. Mm-hmm. And so I just stayed away. And I got deeper and deeper into it. And I went from, this couch to that couch, mm-hmm. and I was very much lost. Didn't even know who I was anymore. The person that was living on purpose before, doing all of those self-development programs, and that was gone. I was gone. Mm-hmm. And instead, I was a very crafty criminal who I didn't tell many people that I had kids. Mm-hmm. I had a nickname. They called me Angel. Angel didn't have kids, and that was protection for my family. Mm. But I couldn't really be me. And I tried again to get clean. I tried for, 3 or 4 months. Tried programs, tried another program, and met somebody else to have sex with and get high. And I was just like, this program thing is a joke for me. I was like, this is a joke. And so again, I took that to mean I don't have any business being clean, right? I get there, and the only thing that ever stands out to me is another way to get high. So that must be my gift, is how to get high and how to have sex, right? That to me was my gift. And, this whole time my daughter was in Arizona and my son is at my mom's. And, I'm, doing the whole avoid the cops, avoid, this. And
Mm-hmm.
My daughter calls me and she says, I need to talk to you. And she was 16 at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, don't be pregnant. Don't be pregnant. Don't be pregnant. And she says, Mom, I'm pregnant.
Yeah.
So I'm still getting high. I'm still not ready to stop. But I told her, I said, you're coming home. You're not going to stay in Arizona and have my grandchild. You're coming home. So I brought her home, a pregnant teenager, to live in hotels, to hotel jump and live in abandoned buildings and basements and in really bad situations, and watch me deal with a very violent situation and, get myself out of that, because I don't sit down for a violent situation. I stand up.
Mm-hmm.
But she had to be stressed out and be around that.
Mm-hmm.
And right before she had my granddaughter, I ended up getting an abscess on my spine from mixing with toilet water.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And almost died. Was in the hospital for 6 weeks, and my granddaughter's about to be born. She was actually born while I was in the hospital, thankfully in the same hospital. I got to be there and see her and didn't miss a beat of that, but I still wasn't ready to get clean. I was getting high in the hospital.
Wow.
My doctors put in a central line, and I was like, boom, bingo. Thank you.
Yeah.
The doctor came in and was like, we want to drug test you. I said, oh, why are you going to drug test me? I've been here for 5 weeks. Why are you going to drug test me? You're not going to drug test me. And, so I just kept skating by. And I got out of the hospital. My daughter this whole time thinks that I want to be clean. And I'm going to be clean. And right after I got out of the hospital, there was a moment I had her EBT card for some reason. I don't remember why she needed it, but I had taken off to San Francisco. So we lived over in the East Bay, over in Oakland, and I had taken off to San Francisco. So she took my granddaughter, put her in the stroller, was going to meet me downtown. And she's texting me, Mom, I'm here. Okay, I'll be there soon. Mom, I'm waiting. Okay, I'll be there soon. And I never went. And it was cold out. And she had my granddaughter. And to this day, that is probably the second worst memory that I carry about my addiction, is that my daughter, hoping to see me, that she was about to move to Stockton, and I wouldn't even show my face. It was too important to me to get high and have sex.
Mm-hmm.
Than it was for me to give her a hug and a kiss and give her back her EBT card. So then she moved back to Arizona after that, and took my granddaughter with her, of course, So, why am I going to get clean again?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not worth it. I can't even do right when my grandchild is here. So another year and a half go by, and I finally am able to make it to Arizona. And, but I make it there in a rental, on a stolen credit card, on a stolen ID. And of course I had the rental way too long. And, I made my daughter participate in my crimes.
Mm-hmm.
I made her be comfortable with it. I gave her gifts and stuff, it was like, made her be comfortable with it. So we took a trip to Las Vegas, and when we came back, we didn't go straight to her apartment, and I was of course crashing and tired. We dropped her boyfriend off at work, and I dropped her off at the park with my granddaughter, and I went and parked in a shopping in the parking lot, because I just, when you're high, you don't want to go be around kids that are on swings and stuff like that. I didn't go do what you're going to do. Come and see me. And my daughter kind of had an idea I was still getting high, but she didn't really know. And, before I had gone there, I'd gotten a lot. I picked up a whole lot of dope, because I knew I was going to be gone a long time. I knew I didn't know anybody in Arizona. And, so my daughter walks up to, I got high, and then of course I'm still not high enough to stay awake. So of course I crashed out sitting in the car. And then my daughter walks up and she knocks on the window. She's like, Mom, you're asleep. Your mouth's open. I'm like, whatever. And we're talking. She hands me my granddaughter, and I put her, and she's jumping around in the back seat. And her boyfriend climbs into the passenger seat, and we're just like chatting. And as we're chatting, we hear, step away from the car. Put your hands up. And Tempe police had rolled by and ran the plate. And so, of course, any stolen car, it's guns drawn immediately. Yeah. And my granddaughter's jumping around in the back seat. And I hear the second thing they say is, stop moving or we're going to shoot. Wow. And we yell, she's a baby, don't, she's a baby. And my daughter's like, that's my baby, no, wait. So they actually let my daughter reach in and grab her and pull her out. And then, of course, you know, they got us all out. And, you know, thankfully I was able to say loud enough that they don't know anything about what's going on. That was always my daughter's cue to, you know, that she doesn't know anything. And then I copped to everything I had in the car because my granddaughter was there. And that was the biggest blessing ever, because had my granddaughter not been there, I wouldn't have copped anything. That was always my game. I don't know what you're talking about, you know, and I want my lawyer. Well, I told them everything that was in the car. I told them what they were going to find. And they arrested me. And, you know, that was that. That was February 19th. So I say my clean date is February 20th because I was not in the right mind even on February 19th. So I know some people, their clean date, the last day they were using. Mine, personally, I choose for it to be the 20th. That was the date that my mind was clearer. So I got out of jail, you know, and I go to court, and there was opportunity. I mean, there's guys in court right there. I'm like, I know you got some, because I still wasn't ready to be clean. And I got his number, and I even called it. But then my daughter comes to the door, and she's knocking on the door, and there's my granddaughter. And I remembered, I almost lost her. She could have been dead because of my choices. And that image of her little face looking at me standing at the door wanting me to pick her up is the image that I carried for the next 6 months. That's the image that kept me clean, that when I wanted to use, I just looked at her. And it was the first time that I really felt in my soul that there was something different for me available than to just getting high and having sex and doing crime. And I say 6 months because it took me 6 months to get back to my faith. Because all through, you know, when I was, you know, growing up and having my kids, I went in and out of the faith that my mom had gone to. So I'm a Jehovah's Witness, right? And I was baptized when I was 20, right after my daughter was born. But I didn't ever develop a relationship with my Creator, a personal relationship. I did it because I wanted my children to have something to grow up in, but I didn't ever do it for me. And in August, that year, I moved back here, and I came back, but I did it because it was for me. And I just poured my heart out. I poured my heart out to my Creator. I asked him to continue to take that obsession from me. I asked him to give me the strength to always remember what I almost lost and to never forget. And I never forget. I'm blessed that they live with me. I see them every day. So that even when I have those moments where I'm like, this would be sometime. I mean, even if I go into a bathroom that locks completely and you can't see around the doors, I'm like, this would be a good place to get high. That's always my first thought. Even to this day, that is my first thought, you know, and I snapped myself right out of it. I snapped myself right out of it because I have a granddaughter and a grandson now. My daughter actually was pregnant with my grandson. We found out she was pregnant right after the whole incident with the car. And, you know, I've got to be there for both of them. And I get to look in their face every single day. And so for me, no, I didn't go to a program this time, you know, and what I think is really important is that I knew that there was a way out there. And I knew that because of my previous times in program, I knew what didn't work for me personally. I'd seen it work for people, but I knew what didn't work for me personally. But I also knew that I could go to my Creator and draw strength from him. And that's what's kept me clean. That, and I'm fully immersed in our congregation and with, you know, positive, you know, I'm working, I have an at-home business I'm building, and the team there is phenomenal. And there's women in there who, you know, also have come from addiction. So we have common ground as well. And even if you haven't come from addiction, then there's just so much love there. So being surrounded constantly by people who love you where you're at, no matter what your story is another thing that really keeps me pushing forward every day. And I still remember exactly how many days I have. I never forget because it's important.
Yeah.
You know, and
hey, I'm sorry to cut you off, but don't you have a sister that's sober as well?
I do. So my sister is, she just got 18 months.
All right.
And she is in the program. So while I say I don't go to meetings, I have been to meetings, but I've been to her CHIP meetings.
Yeah.
And she, you know, she struggled with drug addiction far longer than me because she didn't ever have to take a break. You know, when I said I had children my mom could use against me, she doesn't have children. And my mom, she was really good at hiding it because she could just stay gone. There was never anything like, why isn't she here with her kids? What is it? There was nothing. So she was able to hide it for a really long time from my mom. Now, she couldn't hide it from me. And it took me, you know, until I had proof, until I found out she was hanging with the group I used to hang with. And they actually called and told me. Then I went to her and I was like, this has to change now. And she's been able to lean on me for support. I lean on her for support. And she's my biggest cheerleader in this whole thing. She said that she used to hate to come home to see me because I was doing so good and it was just a slap in her face.
Right.
And, you know, I love that I get to watch her also in recovery. I get to watch her grow and watch how the program helps her. You know, she gets to manage a sober living house, and still very much connected in the program. I mean, she's got like 5 or 6 sponsees. She is, but she's doing phenomenal.
That's great. Hey, you have an amazing story, man. I mean, to go from what you went through, I mean, like, you know, getting high in the hospital, you know, being homeless with your pregnant daughter, you know, so many different things, so much hardship. And, you know, like, because I've gone through so much hardship, like when I meet somebody, I listen to them talk. It's like I can identify with so much things. And, you know, people like me and you know, like all of the hardships I caused in my life. It wasn't like somebody did it for me. It was all of my decisions that I made. But something that good that came out of something like that is that it's made me more resilient. Like my skin is super thick. Like I don't get shaken up very easily, you know, today.
Right.
Because of those experiences. Like, you know, what was meant for my harm, God took it and he turned it into good. And now I can go out and help somebody else and they can benefit off my pain. They can benefit off my pain. And same with you. Because even though I've been sober, you know, coming on 4 years, but when I listen to you, like you share, it's still very encouraging. It's still very inspiring, you know, and it just you know, like keeps pushing me. Like, you know, honestly, like my wife knows, like I don't need any extra pushes in regards to recovery and helping others and reaching out. You know, I don't, man. Like she actually has to kind of like press the brake for me because like it's like, oh, I'm getting too crazy with this thing, you know. But man, amazing. I'm so glad you're here today. But as we wrap up, I'm gonna ask you a few more questions before we wrap up.
Yes.
Now, so you know, not working a program. So, how do you stay clean today?
Well, I mean, the first thing is that I just don't use. I just don't use. And I know to somebody who might be watching this that is using, that might sound like what I'm saying. I think it's simple. It's not. It's not simple. But I do whatever I can to not use. So being very involved in my grandchildren's life, having a relationship with God where I know I can cry and pour my heart out and I feel the weight lifted. I don't just believe the weight will be lifted, but I feel the weight lifted.
Yeah.
That takes the obsession from me, you know, and I know what the steps are. And it's funny, regardless of what the steps are, and if you're working the 12-step program or you're working your sobriety a different way, we all go through the steps.
Yeah.
Right. We all realize our life is unmanageable.
Yeah.
Right. We all come to believe that something else, whatever it is going to keep us clean. Right. In order, you know, eventually we start giving back. And this is what I think one of the gifts of this pandemic has been, is that the recovery community has grown so much online
Yeah.
that we can connect online
Mm-hmm.
more so than people would connect if they were just going to their home groups. You know, most people before this would think recovery has to do with a 12-step program or a
Mm-hmm.
different model of a program,
Yeah.
but not something that they can achieve by just connecting with the community.
Mm-hmm.
And now there's communities on TikTok, there's communities on Instagram, there's communities on Facebook, and
Yeah.
everybody just cheers everybody on and wants to love everybody no matter what they're at. So that stigma and fear of like, oh, I relapsed, people are going to hate me. You see people jumping in the group saying, I'm back at day one, and people are like, you got this.
Yeah.
You got this. Day one's a new start. You know, and it's a gift of this pandemic. And I think that if once we realize that we've been given so many gifts that actually help us to stay clean, then we can grasp those gifts and take them with us wherever we go. Because I've been, like I said, my ex still uses, but we've remained very good friends throughout. So I pop by there every once in a while to check in on him, make sure he's still alive, make sure the people around him know if something happens that they need to call me. You know, that's the man that my children call grandpa. And all the time I'm going there and I'm like, you know, whenever you're ready, man, whenever you're ready. You know, I send him all these, I sent him this, right? I sent him the link for this, right? So he can hear and, you know, hopefully he'll get that. But so I've seen it. I walk in and I see it. I smell it.
Yeah.
But what I always remember more importantly is that for me, my why is huge. For me, if I use again, I might as well look at my granddaughter and tell her, yeah, you could have died, but you didn't. So it's okay.
Yeah. Man.
And
amazing.
I never want them to feel that way.
Yeah. Okay. You know, before I ask you this next question, you know, people who are not in program, people who are not sober, there's this big misconception that, oh, you're sober, you're in recovery, oh, your life must just be great. You don't struggle with nothing, you don't got no financial insecurity or nothing. And I kind of like to always smash that one. So, you know, being sober almost 5 years, what is something that you still struggle with today, even though you've been clean for almost 5 years?
I struggle big with financial stability. I struggle big with financial stability, you know, and not just because of this pandemic. You know, my consequences of my actions are that I didn't ever finish college. I started college many times. I started it many times, even in my thinking this is going to be the answer, but I didn't ever finish it. So while I have a lot of skills that if somebody would hire me, they could see and I would excel at, they're not willing to get me past the door. So that's number one. And you know, I'm still just as scattered as I was before. You know, my brain, I have, you know, my brain is like, you know, a hamster on a wheel, and to get off and it's just another wheel. Like it's like never, you know, it's so scattered. I don't feel like I really feel this calm and contentment like that yet. I know who I am. I'm strong with who I am, and I've got that. But sobriety is hard. Using is hard. I choose my hard.
Yeah, that's right. I like that. That's a good one. Okay, next question. What are you most grateful for today? I know that probably is a hard question to answer.
I am most grateful that my children, my oldest hated me for a long time. I'm most grateful that I have all of them in my life. My oldest and I have more than reconciled. He doesn't bring it up. He's come to his own peace about it. And there isn't any, why did you, right? They just let us grow and heal. I'm most grateful for that. Now, I wouldn't have gotten that if I hadn't taken all the steps and gotten close to my creator. And I'm grateful for all of those things. And I have some material things I'm grateful for too. But the fact that my children who don't have to forgive me because I'm their mom, it's my job. It's my job to be the one there for them. They don't have to be there for me. They didn't ask to do this. And that they give that to me is pure grace. Pure grace.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. And then lastly, last question I'll ask you before we wrap this up is, what would you say to somebody that's still out there sick and suffering due to this disease of addiction?
I would tell them that your your chance at a life slips by every day. You don't know that you're missing that chance at a life until you start to live it. But if you never give yourself that chance, you're going to wake up one day and be 50 or 60. And I do know it's harder to get clean the older you get. You know, and if it, you know, one of the things that we say in our team is that borrow belief from somebody else.
That's right. I like that. If you don't
have belief in yourself, borrow someone else's belief, because I can guarantee you, especially now, there's a whole community, people that don't even know you, that never even met you, but that believe in you. So borrow their belief and use that to walk until you have filled up your sobriety bank. So I have what I call a sobriety bank. That you can't withdraw a little bit at a time. I can't use and just withdraw one day. If I use, it's all gone. So I have this bank, and each day it's like another deposit into that bank. And I feel like right now that bank is just huge. But using it, it'll be gone. So, you know, deposit into your sobriety bank with somebody else's belief for a little bit until you can feel that you're putting your own in. Right
on, man. That's so encouraging. Well, Jennifer, you know, it was great, man. I will definitely keep in touch with you.
Please
do. You just have such an amazing story. And, you know, it's something that you typically would hear from somebody that literally got sober in a 12-step program. You know, but I like that there's different people that go live with me that have different stories. They did it different ways. You know, I'm not saying that 12-step programs, like, don't really work or nothing, because, I mean, it worked for me. You know, so, like, that was my thinking. Maybe first 2 years when I got sober was like, yes, anybody can get sober if they work a 12-step program. You know, my mind wasn't really open. It was still close to the idea because I was getting so much freedom from it that, yes. Like, I don't understand why people, you know, they're not getting it or whatever. You know, I mean, I was even 2 years sober. You know, I still was learning. Today, I'm still learning. I always say, you know, I'm a work in progress. I'm always under construction. Because if I start to think, man, like, okay, I know this, I know that, I know, you know, when I start getting to the I know, man, it's very subtle how it happens, and I'm just slip right back into self. And I tell God, oh, hit the back seat, I'm driving the car again, you know, but it happens so subtly, it's not very obvious, it's hard to identify, you know, but there's little like indicators, you know, that for me anyway, when these things start happening, when I'm subtly trying to like push God out of the driver's seat, you know. So I recognize these things today. Before I did not. But thank you again, Jennifer. This is great. You know, I was talking to you earlier. I do have my own YouTube page. I post all these videos on it. So after it's over, I'll text you the video.
This has been awesome. Thank you for allowing me to share my story to reach even more people. You know,
absolutely.
I knew I wanted to puke before, but you know, I know that. It's this that can maybe helps one person. If what I said helps one person, then I'm fulfilled. Then I'm good. You know,
I'm sure it because I'm the one person. It has already helped me. I'm sure it has helped other people that has been on live, and I'm gonna post it. Other people will be able to view it as well. Absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for being here with me. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Woo! All right, guys. So Jennifer did not get sober in a 12-step program. So chew on that one for a little bit. You know, there's multiple ways of getting sober and staying sober. You know, it's amazing though. But I always say, you have a story to tell. It doesn't matter how you got sober, how you got clean to me. If you struggled with addiction and you no longer do, I want to hear about it. So please reach out to me here on my Pro Recovery Power or my personal page, which is just my name, at Alika Gambo. So thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you guys tomorrow. I got my man Vince on. It's going to be unbelievable. You guys don't want to miss this one. See you guys later.